Sienna Monroe never expected to trip over her own feet and land in the arms of a stranger on the first night of salsa class. But that's exactly what happened. She let out a breathless laugh as she stumbled back, her hand pressed against the man's chest to steady herself. "Sorry," she muttered, straightening up. "I think my right foot forgot it had a job." The man gave a quiet, amused chuckle. "It's okay, I've caught worse falls." He looked like he belonged on the cover of a glossy fashion magazine, tall, dark hair swept back with a face that made her blink twice. His button-down shirt was expensive, tailored, and his watch gleamed under the studio lights. He didn't look like someone who needed to take beginner salsa lessons. "I'm Marcus," he said, holding out a hand, his voice calm but confident. "Sienna," she replied, shaking it. "Let me guess, you've done this before?" Marcus tilted his head. "Once or twice. But I'm here for the same reason you are, to try something new." She didn't buy it. The way he'd caught her fluid steady, it wasn't beginner reflexes. But she didn't push. A man like that probably had a dozen women tossing themselves at him every day. She wasn't about to be one of them. Still, when the instructor called out for everyone to pair up and Marcus stepped toward her again, she felt her chest tighten. "Partners?" he asked. She nodded, brushing hair behind her ear. "Sure, just don't let me break your toes." They started slow. The instructor barked directions over the music, and Sienna tried to follow Marcus's lead without looking like she was concentrating too hard. He was smooth, effortless. His palm against her back was warm, and every time their eyes met, she felt her stomach flip. "So," she said as they spun, "what do you do when you're not catching women mid-fall?" He hesitated, just for a second. "I work in real estate, some development projects. It's..." "Boring, boring?" She raised an eyebrow. "You say that like you haven't already made a fortune." He smiled, quiet, "Something like that." The night passed faster than she expected. One dance turned into 3, then 5. She didn't trip again, but she found herself laughing more than she had in weeks. After class, he walked her to her car, holding the door open like he'd done it 1,000 times before. "You're a fast learner," he said. She shrugged, sliding into the seat. "Or you're just a really patient partner." He didn't respond right away, just leaned down slightly, eyes locked with hers. "Same time next week," she nodded. "Yeah, I'll be here." He stepped back and she drove away with her heart doing somersaults. Sienna didn't usually sign up for things on impulse. She was the type to budget her groceries down to the dollar and triple-check her planner. But after the year, she'd had losing her job, finding a new one that barely paid the bills, and watching her ex get engaged to someone who looked like a runway model, she'd walked past the beginner salsa sign and signed up without thinking. It felt good to do something for herself. Even better that her dance partner happened to look like a movie star. The second week, Marcus was already waiting when she arrived, leaning against the mirror like he owned the place. He looked casual but expensive, dark jeans, fitted shirt, and that same calm confidence that made her insides flutter. "Hey," she said, sliding her dance shoes on. "Ready to dodge my feet again?" "Always," he said with a small grin, "but I think you're underselling yourself." They danced again. And again. She didn't ask for details about his job, and he didn't offer. But he listened when she talked about her boss who chewed gum like it owed her money, about her dream to start her own bakery someday, about how she used to dance as a kid but quit after her parents split up. He didn't interrupt, he didn't zone out, he just listened. At the end of the 4th class, he surprised her. "There's a salsa night at this place downtown," he said, handing her a folded flyer. "Live band, real dance floor, you should come." Sienna blinked. "Like a club?" "More like a lounge, classy. I'll be there." She hesitated. "I don't know, I don't have anything to wear to something like that." Marcus looked at her for a moment, then he took out a sleek black card from his wallet and slipped it into her hand. "Go to Faye's boutique on 5th. Tell them Marcus sent you." Her eyes widened. "Wait, what?" "They'll help you find something," he said. "My treat. I can't take your money. You're not. You're accepting a gift from your dance partner who really wants to see you there." Sienna stared at the card. "You're serious?" He nodded once. "Completely." Faye's boutique was not the kind of place Sienna usually stepped into. The glass doors opened into a world of soft lights, champagne in crystal flutes, and clothes she didn't dare touch. But when she gave her name, the entire staff lit up like they'd been waiting all day for her. 2 hours later, she walked out with a deep red dress that hugged her in all the right places, a pair of heels that made her legs look longer than ever, and a little black box she didn't ask for but the saleswoman insisted was from Marcus. Inside was a necklace. Diamond cut. Simple, elegant, and definitely worth more than her rent. When she showed up at the lounge that Friday night, Marcus was already there, and when he turned and saw her, he froze. "You look." His voice was lower tonight, rougher. "Incredible." Sienna smiled, cheeks warm. "You clean up pretty well yourself," he offered his hand. "Shall we?" They danced. Under the dim lights, to the rhythm of the live band, surrounded by strangers, they danced like they'd known each other forever. His hand never left her waist. His eyes never left her face. And when the music slowed and he pulled her just a little closer, Sienna let herself forget every warning in her head. "Marcus." She began, his thumb lightly brushed her jaw. "Yeah," she swallowed. "Why me? I'm nobody." He leaned in, his voice barely above a whisper. "You're not nobody. You're the first woman I've met in a long time who doesn't care about my last name, my wallet, or my connections. You just dance. You laugh. You're real." Her heart thudded in her chest. But before she could answer, a woman across the room called out, "Mr. Thorne." "The press is outside again." Marcus flinched. Sienna stepped back. "Mr. Thorne," he ran a hand through his hair. "I was going to tell you, I swear," she blinked. "Tell me what?" "I'm Marcus Thorne. I own Thorne Properties and about 20 buildings in this city." Her mouth dropped open. "You're a millionaire," he gave a slow nod. "Yes." Sienna stared at him, at the necklace around her neck, at the dress, at the club. Everything clicked into place, and suddenly the floor didn't feel so steady anymore. Sienna didn't sleep much that night. She sat on the edge of her bed, still in the red dress, her heels discarded somewhere near the door. The necklace felt heavier now that she knew what it probably cost and who it had come from. Outside, the city pulsed with its usual rhythm, oblivious to the sudden shift inside her chest. Marcus Thorne, a name she'd heard in passing during news segments she never finished, real estate mogul, high rises, sky towers, and apparently salsa enthusiast. She rubbed her temples, trying to make sense of the man she thought she knew, the one who'd listened when she talked about her mom's lemon bars, who'd helped steady her when she stumbled, who looked at her like she was more than the sum of her bad luck and overdue bills. She wasn't angry. Not exactly, but her trust had cracked, and cracks, she knew from experience, didn't vanish just because someone said sorry. The next day, she didn't go to work. She couldn't face the endless line of emails and passive-aggressive notes from her supervisor, not while her mind kept circling back to Marcus. Instead, she walked. From her apartment in the East End, across the bridge, past the bakery she used to work at before it closed. The wind smelled like roasted almonds and car exhaust. By mid-afternoon, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She didn't answer, but 20 minutes later, a car pulled up beside her. A sleek, dark sedan. The kind with tinted windows and doors that opened without a sound. Marcus stepped out. "I didn't call you," she said, stopping in her tracks. "I know, I took a guess." She folded her arms. "And what gave you the right to send me clothes, jewelry?" "That necklace probably costs more than my entire bank account. I wasn't trying to buy you." "Then what were you doing?" His jaw tightened. "Trying to make you feel special." "I don't need a stranger's money to feel special," she snapped. "You're not a stranger to me, Sienna." She stepped back, hands clenched into fists. "You let me believe you were just some guy who liked to dance. You could have told me the truth, but instead you waited until someone else said your name." "I was going to," he said quietly. Every time I tried, I felt like saying it would change things." It did. They stood in silence, the city pressing in around them. Finally, Marcus reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "I didn't come to that class for fun," he said. "My sister signed me up." Said I needed to meet someone who didn't know my name, didn't care about my company portfolio or how many zeros are in my accounts. Sienna didn't take the paper. I don't want apologies. It's not an apology, he said. It's a fundraiser invitation, tomorrow night. It's for a community kitchen I helped build last year. I'll be there. So will a lot of other people who don't know me as anything but the guy who shows up with crates of soup and overcooked spaghetti. She eyed the invitation. Why are you giving this to me? Because I want you to see the part of my life that doesn't show up on magazine covers. She took the paper slowly, folding it into her coat pocket without a word. I won't chase you, Marcus said, but I'll be there. If you come, I'll know I still have a chance. He got back in the car and drove off, leaving nothing but the sound of her heartbeat in his wake. The next evening, Sienna stood outside the old church building that had been converted into a community hall. Strings of warm lights hung across the courtyard, and the smell of roasted vegetables drifted through the open doors. She didn't wear anything extravagant, just a navy blouse and black slacks. Simple, comfortable, hers. Inside, the hall buzzed with conversation. Kids ran between tables, volunteers passed out plates, and a man in a white apron handed out bread rolls like his life depended on it. Marcus wasn't in a suit. He wore jeans, a rolled-up button-down, and a baseball cap turned backward. He looked years younger like this, less perfect, less polished. Real? When he noticed her standing at the edge of the room, he didn't rush. He just smiled and nodded, then went back to helping a teenage boy carry a tray of dishes. A woman approached. Mid-40s, warm eyes, flour on her cheek. "You're the dancer girl, aren't you?" she asked. Sienna blinked. "Excuse me. I've seen you on his phone. He doesn't let many people in, but I've known him since before he had people to hide from." The woman extended her hand. "I'm Genevieve. I run this place. Marcus is one of our biggest donors. But he sets chairs, washes plates, and scrubs the floors like everyone else." Sienna glanced over at Marcus, who was now helping tape up a banner that kept falling. Genevieve leaned in. "He doesn't do this for show. He does it because he remembers what it was like to have nothing." Sienna's brows furrowed. "What do you mean?" His mom used to come here back when this place was a soup kitchen with no roof. He was about 12, didn't say much. Just helped her carry the bags. Genevieve walked away, leaving Sienna standing still. Later, as she helped stack cups on a folding table, Marcus joined her. "You came," he said quietly. "I wanted to see," she replied. He didn't say thank you, he didn't try to explain. Instead, he handed her a plate of cookies and nodded toward the table of kids in the corner. "They keep sneaking seconds. Think you can distract them while I hide the extras?" She laughed once, softly. "Only if you promise not to bribe me with jewelry again." "No promises," he said. "But I'll try." They passed out cookies. They wiped down tables. They laughed hesitantly but honestly, and when the night ended and the lights dimmed, Marcus walked her outside to where the sidewalk met the cracked curb. "I'm not perfect," he said. "And I don't expect you to ignore what I kept from you, but I haven't stopped thinking about you since that first night." Sienna looked up at him, the streetlights casting gold across his face. "I don't know if I trust you yet." "I can live with that," he said. "As long as you let me earn it." She hesitated, then nodded once. "Then start with a question." He raised an eyebrow. "Any question? Surprise me." He took a breath, then tilted his head. "Do you believe that two people can meet by accident and still be meant for each other?" Sienna's lips parted. Then, slowly, she answered. "I don't know yet. But you're open to the possibility." She gave the smallest nod. And for the first time since she'd learned his name, her heart didn't feel quite so guarded. Sienna stood at the edge of the rooftop terrace, her fingers curled loosely around the stem of her champagne flute. The city stretched below in 1,000 glimmering lights, but her thoughts were tangled in the man behind her and the question he'd asked her 2 nights ago. She hadn't answered then, not really. But she was here now. The fundraiser was over. The volunteers had cleared out. Genevieve had given her a knowing glance as she left, and Marcus had said nothing, just carried on helping with the cleanup like always. But when he'd offered to show her the building's rooftop view before she left, She'd said yes. Now he stepped up beside her, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened. He looked different in the quiet, less guarded. "They say this view makes people fall in love," Marcus said, setting his glass on the ledge. "Is that why you brought me up here?" Sienna asked without looking at him. He exhaled through his nose. "No, I brought you here because I wanted to give you a reason to stay a little longer." She turned to him slowly. "You always know what to say, don't you?" "No," he said. "Not with you." "With you, I second-guess everything." She leaned her hip against the marble railing. "You don't seem like the second-guessing type." "I wasn't," he admitted. "Until you." Sienna studied his face. "Why didn't you ever tell me you grew up needing places like that kitchen?" "I didn't want your pity," he said. "And I didn't want to lead with my past like it was some sob story. I don't carry it around like a trophy." "You carry it," she said. "You just hide it well." He didn't deny it. She set her glass down beside his. "So what happened? How'd you go from helping your mom carry grocery bags to owning parts of the skyline?" He gave a dry laugh. "A lot of stubbornness. And a mentor who took a chance on a kid with no college degree but a knack for numbers." "I didn't sleep much for about 6 years." Her brows lifted. "And now you're the guy who gives out designer necklaces to girls he meets in dance class." "That wasn't supposed to be a bribe," he said. "I noticed you never wore jewelry." "I thought maybe you didn't because no one ever gave you something worth keeping." Sienna's chest tightened. "You're right, no one has." They stood in silence as a breeze swept over the rooftop, lifting a loose strand of her hair. "I've been thinking," he said. "About that bakery you mentioned." Her eyes narrowed. "What about it?" "I want to help you open it," she blinked. "Excuse me? I'm not offering to run it or slap my name on it. I'm offering to invest, silent partner, your vision, your rules." She took a step back. "You're serious?" "I've already run your numbers," he said. "The location you mentioned, it's viable, high foot traffic, and a new office block is breaking ground 2 blocks away. You'd need a little under 200,000 to start comfortably." "I can wire it tomorrow." "Marcus," she said, her voice low, "I can't accept that. I'm not a project." "I don't see you as one," he said, "but I do see someone who's settling for a life that's smaller than what she's capable of." She folded her arms. "So what, you just throw money at problems until they disappear?" "No," he said. "I invest in people who make me believe in something." Sienna's pulse picked up. "And what do I make you believe in?" He stepped closer. "That I'm not done becoming who I'm supposed to be." Emotion caught in her throat. No man had ever said anything like that to her, not without expecting something in return. She looked away. "You make it very hard to walk away from you. Then don't. Don't ask me to leap into something I'm not ready for." "I'm not asking you to leap," he said. "I'm just asking you not to shut the door." Her voice was barely audible. "I'm scared." "I am too," he said. "But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you." She looked at him, then really looked. She saw the man who had held her in his arms when she stumbled, not knowing her name. The man who scrubbed dishes in a soup kitchen without telling anyone his net worth. The man who listened when she talked about dreams she'd nearly forgotten she had, and then she kissed him. She didn't plan it. There was no dramatic music or perfect cue. Just a moment where everything else faded: the skyline, the wind, the fear, and her lips found his. He kissed her back like he'd been waiting since the moment they met. It wasn't rushed or overconfident, it was careful. Reverent, like he knew he was touching something fragile and rare. When they finally pulled apart, her hands resting on his chest, he whispered, "I didn't expect that." "Neither did I," she said. "But I don't regret it." He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "So what happens now? You give me time," she said, "and space. But not too much. I can do that. And you don't give me any more necklaces," he grinned. "Fine, but I'm not promising about the bakery." She rolled her eyes. "You're impossible." "I've been told that," he said, "but I'm also persistent." She reached for her glass again. "Well then, Mr. Persistent, I guess we'll see what happens." He watched her, a quiet intensity in his gaze. "We already are." Sienna stood behind the glass-paneled door and stared at the keys in her hand. They weren't heavy, but they felt like they carried the weight of every decision she'd made over the last month. The tiny storefront on the corner of Belrose and 8th was hers now, well, almost. The lease was signed. The overhead cleared. The paint still peeled in some places and the floorboards creaked, but it had good bones. She could already see the marble counter she wanted, the pale blue tile backsplash, the chalkboard menu hung behind the register. The bakery was real. And it was happening because she'd said yes to risk, to possibility, and to him. She pushed the door open and stepped inside. The scent of the previous tenant's forgotten cinnamon still lingered in the air. Dust clung to the windows, but the morning sun spilled through anyway, stretching warm light across the floor. Marcus arrived 10 minutes later, dressed in jeans and a dark sweater, holding a white paper bag in one hand and a steaming-to-go cup in the other. "You didn't have breakfast," he said, offering both to her. "I didn't say that. You didn't have to." He handed her the bag and walked toward the back wall. "You want a built-in shelving unit here, right?" Eventually, he turned around, brushing his hands together. "Then I'll get someone in next week to take measurements." "I already called someone," she said, raising her eyebrows. He looked amused. "You're getting faster at this." "I have to. You've made it impossible to keep up unless I plan 3 steps ahead." "Good." "That means you're becoming dangerous." She bit into the almond croissant he'd brought her. "You say that like it's a compliment." "It is." He crossed the room and leaned against the far counter. "So what's next? You've got permits in motion, inspections scheduled." "I need to finalize contractors," she said through a mouthful. "And I'm still debating the name." He tilted his head. "What are the options?" Monroe Bakes sounds too plain. The Morning Whisk is cute but maybe too whimsical. Fleur and Crumb is the current front-runner. He nodded once. "That one's good. It has character." She narrowed her eyes. "You're only saying that because it sounds expensive." "Not true," he replied. "Though it would look nice in gold lettering," she chuckled, walking to the window. "I keep waiting for the panic to hit." "But it's not." "Why would it?" "Because this is the first time I've gone all in on something that didn't come with a safety net." He stepped beside her, their reflections blending in the glass. "Maybe that's because you finally believe you can fly." She didn't answer. Not because she didn't agree, but because hearing it out loud stirred something she wasn't ready to name. Later that afternoon, Marcus drove her back to her apartment. They sat in his car for a moment, neither reaching for the handle. "Dinner tomorrow?" he asked. She glanced at him. "Are you going to try to feed me something that costs more than my rent again?" "No," he said. "It's at my place. I'll cook." "You cook? Enough to impress you," she grinned. "That's a high bar." "I know." He reached over and brushed a small smear of almond filling from the corner of her mouth. "But you're worth clearing it." She caught his hand before he could pull away. "You're not afraid of saying things like that, are you?" "I used to be, but not with you." She leaned closer. "Then I'll bring dessert." The next evening, she stepped into his penthouse for the first time. It was nothing like she expected. Yes, the ceilings were high and the windows stretched forever, but there was no sterile coldness. The walls were lined with books, a few family photos, and old jazz records. A warm scent filled the space: garlic, rosemary, something buttery on the stove. He greeted her in socked feet and a navy apron. "I'm trying not to burn anything," he said, waving a wooden spoon. "I brought lemon tarts," she said, holding up a box. "From that place on Henley. The ones you raved about in week 2 of class." She blinked. "You remember that?" "I remember everything you tell me," he said simply. Dinner was pasta handmade, he claimed, and vegetables roasted so perfectly she briefly considered marrying him on the spot. They ate by the windows, overlooking the skyline, wine glasses catching the city's reflection. Afterward, she wandered into the living room while he cleaned up. There was a photograph on the shelf she hadn't noticed before. A woman, mid-30s, smiling wide, apron dusted with flour. He joined her a moment later and followed her gaze. "That's my mom," he said. "It's the only photo I have of her smiling after my dad left." Sienna looked at him. "You said she brought you to the kitchen when you were a kid." "She worked 3 jobs," he said. We lived in a 2-room apartment for 5 years. I used to help her bake on Sundays. She always said it was the only time the world felt quiet. Sienna's chest tightened. She'd be proud of you. I hope so. She reached for his hand. You've built so much, not just buildings, but people too. He turned to her. I want to build something with you. She held his gaze. That sounds dangerously close to a proposal. He didn't laugh. Instead, he walked to the sideboard and opened a drawer. I wasn't going to do this yet, he said, pulling out a small velvet box, but I've already waited longer than I wanted to. She froze. He stepped back toward her, holding the box loosely. I don't need a formal ceremony tomorrow. I don't need a ring on your finger by next week, but I need you to know that I want forever with you. Not because you bake like a dream or because you make me laugh like no one else ever has. But because when I look at you, I see everything I didn't know I needed. She stared at him. Her heart beat so fast it felt like a drum in her throat. You said you weren't asking me to leap, she whispered. I'm not, he said. But I am asking you to walk into the future with me. She took the box from his hand and opened it. Inside was a simple gold band with a single delicate diamond, not flashy, not oversized, just perfect. She looked up. Yes, his breath caught. Yes, she nodded. Yes. He pulled her into his arms, lifting her off the ground as she laughed against his neck. The city buzzed outside, but inside everything was still. Later, they stood by the window again, her hand in his, the skyline glittering below. I never thought Salsa would lead to all this, she said softly. I did, he replied. She turned to him with a raised brow. Oh really? He kissed her temple. From the moment you stepped on my foot, I knew I'd never want another dance partner again. And together, they watched the city glow, 2 hearts finally in step. The scent of fresh vanilla and warm butter filled the air, curling through the open door of the bakery before the sun had even fully risen. The sign above the shop floor and crumb gleamed in soft gold lettering, catching the light from the street lamp as the first rays of dawn crept over the city skyline. Sienna wiped her hands on her apron and stepped back to admire the final display. A neat row of lemon-lavender scones, perfectly golden croissants, and a tray of heart-shaped cherry danishes she'd stayed up half the night perfecting. The glass counter gleamed. The tile backsplash had been finished just 3 days earlier, and the chalkboard menu hand-lettered by her own unsteady but determined hand finally felt real. The ribbon cutting was set for later that morning, but she'd arrived before anyone else. She needed a moment alone with it, with all of it. The walls she'd chosen, the oven she'd fought to keep in the budget, the space that once looked like a forgotten corner of the city now warm and alive. She turned when the door creaked open. Marcus stepped inside, carrying 2 mugs and a paper bag under his arm. He set the coffee on the counter, then held up the bag. I brought the good jam, the one you said was too frivolous to stock. You're impossible, she said, walking toward him. You didn't say I was wrong. She took the bag, glancing inside. Okay, fine, raspberry and rose, you win. I always do. She nudged his shoulder with hers. Don't push your luck. He looked around, taking in the finished space. It's beautiful, Sienna. She let out a breath. It still doesn't feel real, he turned to her. It is, this is yours, you built it, you helped. I believed in you, there's a difference. She tilted her head. You still do, more than ever. She poured his coffee into a real mug this time, not a to-go cup, and handed it to him as she leaned on the counter beside him. I've been thinking, she said, eyes on the doorway, about what happens now. Besides you becoming the most sought-after baker in the city, she smiled. I mean with us. He waited, letting her find the words. I've been independent for so long, she said. Even when I was with someone, I was always waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for them to get bored or walk away or fall in love with someone shinier. Marcus set down his cup. I'm not going anywhere, he said. I know, she whispered. That's what scares me. You stayed. Even when I pulled back, even when I wasn't easy to love. He took her face in his hands gently, like she might still dart away if he moved too fast. I don't want easy, I want you. I want the woman who told me off in the middle of the street, who walked into a high-end boutique like it was enemy territory, who built something out of nothing and still makes room in her heart for people who need a second chance. Her eyes shimmered, but she didn't look away. I want the woman who challenged me without even trying, who made me slow down and see the world again. I'm not in this because it's simple, I'm in it because it's you. She rested her forehead against his. I love you, he smiled, soft and steady. I love you too. The bell above the door chimed and Genevieve stepped inside, arms full of white lilies and a clipboard tucked under one arm. Sorry to interrupt your little love bubble, she called, but you've got a line forming outside and a city councilwoman ready to cut your ribbon. Sienna straightened, brushing her hands down her apron. Showtime. Marcus caught her hand before she walked away. You've got this, she squeezed his fingers. We've got this. The ribbon cutting was a blur of camera flashes, applause, and congratulations. The moment she sliced through the red silk with the oversized scissors, the crowd broke into cheers. Reporters asked her how it felt to go from small-town girl to local business owner. She answered honestly, terrified, grateful, and ready. Customers flooded in. Some she knew, some she didn't. The Danishes sold out first. The coffee machine sputtered once before kicking into gear. She passed out samples, took compliments with flushed cheeks, and watched as her dream came alive in front of her. Marcus stayed in the background. He didn't draw attention to himself, didn't need to. But every time she glanced up, he was there talking to her staff, carrying boxes, refilling napkin dispensers. He wasn't the billionaire real estate mogul in that moment. He was hers. By the end of the day, her feet ached, her hands were sticky with sugar, and her heart felt like it might burst. She found him waiting for her in the back, holding a glass of water and a folded note. You wrote me a letter? She asked, taking it from him. Not exactly. He nodded toward the handwriting. It's from my mom. I found it last week while helping Genevieve sort through some of the old files at the kitchen. She opened it carefully. The paper had yellowed, the ink faded but legible. It was a thank you note, dated nearly 2 decades earlier. A young woman thanking the volunteers for providing food and hope during the worst year of her life. At the bottom, a small scrawl, my son wants to build something big one day. I don't know what, but I pray it's something made of kindness. Sienna pressed the note to her chest. She'd be proud of you, she said. I think she'd be proud of both of us. That night they returned to the penthouse, but it didn't feel like a castle in the clouds anymore. It felt like home. They curled up on the couch, legs tangled, laughter soft between kisses. You know, Marcus said, running his fingers down her arm, I was thinking about our wedding. Sienna arched a brow. Already planning it? I'm not planning, just imagining. Imagining what, you in white? Barefoot in the bakery courtyard, flowers in your hair. A cake you won't let anyone else bake, she laughed. Of course I'll bake my own cake. And I was thinking, he continued, instead of the usual vows, we make each other a promise. What kind of promise? To never stop dancing. Even when the music changes. She leaned in and kissed him, slow and sure. I'll promise that, she whispered. And they stayed like that, wrapped in each other as the city blinked around them and the future opened wide. A year later, Fleur and Crumb had a second location in the works. The courtyard wedding was already legend among friends and family. And every Sunday morning before the doors opened, Marcus would pull Sienna into the middle of the bakery, spin her in slow circles, and remind her that love, when built right, was the most beautiful thing they ever made.